up, YouTubers?
Sticky treat!
Chuck here, and in this series we're going to be covering board game mechanics. Games that use those mechanics and how to design around them. So just sit back, relax, as we explore the insidious world of board gaming. In this episode, we're going to travel back through time to look at one of the oldest board game mechanics, trick-taking. The main goal in these games is to win a trick. Or not. Well, I mean either way. Tricks are made by each player playing a card on the table face up. Then, depending on the rules, the winner of the trick will take all the cards for point scoring. The most common way to win a trick is by having played the highest valued card. Oftentimes, these style games are played with suits. Players may be required to follow suit, which simply means to play the same type of card that was led. If a player doesn't have a card that matches that criteria, then they can play any card in their hand. Karnöffel, Evil Knievel? This German game is one of the oldest trick-taking games on record. It was designed around the 15th century and was based on a convoluted tiering of trumps that honestly made my head explode trying to remember. The basic premise, though, is one that many games today were built upon. A trump exists and is considered the highest valued card when trying to win a trick. To continue on our journey of the 52 card deck, let's go on to Spades and Hearts. So Spades and Hearts are probably the most popular trick-taking games. Interestingly enough, these games didn't even show up for another 400 years. Of the two, Hearts came first. Your goal in Hearts is trivial: to get the lowest score. The suit of hearts and the queen of spades, especially the queen of spades, will add points to your trick, so you'll want to avoid them as much as possible. The problem with Hearts is that it's extremely simple and can get boring really fast. Spades is a similar game, except you have a trump suit and you're trying to win tricks rather than avoid them. You and a partner are going to bid on how many of these tricks y'all think you both can win. Bidding adds a little bit more depth to this game, but we'll cover that mechanic in a later video. There are also alternative ways to rack up points, which I find add variety and tension to gameplay. And in my opinion, having another partner who can cover your tuchus is just an added bonus over its predecessor. So fast forward about 100 years to the mid-1980s, Wizard came along and melded ideas from the three previous games into what became a very solid trick-taking game. It has a single trump card like that other German game. It follows suits like Hearts, and it has a trump suit like Spades, except this trump suit is constantly changing throughout the game. Wizard is such a well-designed game. It's straightforward and accessible with just a hint of profundity. The ever-changing trump suit adds nice variety, and scoring isn't overly complicated, but unique enough to stand out against other trick-taking games. Another game released around the same time as Wizard was Rage. It was all the rage. It's very similar to Wizard, except for a few minor differences. It has more suits, higher numbers, and several special cards that can modify the trump suit or even point scoring. These abilities are clearly marked on the cards, which make it easy for the player to identify and use them. This is always good design practice to keep in mind. Aesthetics aren't always what people think of when designing games, but in instances like the special cards in Rage, showing exactly what the card does in a simplified manner is 100 times better than having to refer back to a rules or reference sheet. Tichu is a game that could be described as Rage on steroids, except without a trump suit and the convenient reference icons. The basic game is fairly simple. Poker-styled combinations such as pairs, runs, or full houses can all be added to a trick. In order to do so, however, you have to play the higher cards of that same combination, otherwise called climbing. Oh, hey, I don't actually own this game, so we're gonna make our own special cards that I'm gonna talk about in a moment. As you can see here, I'm just taking a rules card. You could also use a joker. You don't need anything fancy, just 2 decks of cards. I say 2 because you'll need at least 4 cards, extra cards. You'll need your 52 card deck and you'll need some extras. You're gonna use your trusty marker here, and you're just gonna flesh out that outline until you have something recognizable. The artwork doesn't have to be great. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be making a phoenix, a dragon, a dog, and a 1. Once you begin to add the 4 special trump cards, Tichu becomes a little reminiscent of that German game from earlier. The one I'm not going to say, because I can't say it. Karnöffel, Colonel Waffle. There's so many rules associated to the 4 cards that comprehending or even explaining the game can be difficult for new players. Adding depth to a game is generally not a bad idea. In fact, it's one that I encourage, but the implementation could have been better. At the same time Tichu was coming out, Trumpet was winning Game of the Year. In Trumpet, when you win a trick, you get to advance a scoring token along a trackboard. On the board, there are 6 special spaces, and whoever lands on one of these assigns a new trump suit. But unlike previous trick-taking games, the trumps become ranked rather than changed. This makes for some interesting gameplay as the value of the cards in your hand are constantly changing throughout the game. This was a family favorite when I was growing up. The game's simplistic design and the inclusion of an interactive board provides a unique gaming experience and is still one of my favorites to this day. The last example for our mechanic is a game that is sadly out of print and one that I currently don't own a copy of. However, David and Goliath adds such a unique twist to trick-taking that I thought its inclusion in this video was absolutely necessary. And since I can't exactly show you how it works here, let's just take a look at our old trusty chalkboard. When playing a card in David and Goliath, one must follow suit if at all possible, but any card can be played if one does not have that color. The winner of the trick is the highest card, regardless of the suit led, but before collecting his loot, the winner must give the card he used to the player who played the lowest card. Then he can finish collecting his trick. I love the clever scoring in this game, and how it makes you second guess which card you want to play. Like I said, a very unique trick to tricking. A very unique take to trick-taking. Okay, I lied. There's just one more addition that I need to add to our timeline. Diamonds is the most recent addition to the trick-taking world. As in, it just came out. Like right now. Well, not right now. Diamonds could be considered the gamer's version of trick-taking. Now stay with me here. Hey, you! Sit down. The reason I say this is because players aren't necessarily worried about winning a trick. Instead, they're vying for suit actions. These can obviously be won by winning a trick. But, and here's the awesome part, if you can't follow suit, you also get to take one of these actions. Why is this important? Because the main goal of the game is to win these. And those precious little stones can be won by taking those suit actions we talked about earlier. So if you're going to buy or possibly design a trick-taking game, remember that these games are usually very light and are good for family or other non-gamer friends. If you do plan to make it more complex, make sure to aesthetically show what each card does directly on the card itself and keep it simple. This will cause less confusion and ultimately make for a smoother transition for new players. And don't become frustrated. Come on. Get in there! If it's difficult to find or create new ways to play this genre, there's a reason only a select few have withstood the test of time. Most importantly, always do your research when designing or selling a game. Read reviews, play test your product, and ask around for others' opinions. Well, thank you for joining in on this episode of Board Game Mechanics. Make sure to subscribe to Pub Meeple and give us a thumbs up. See you next time. Get in the box. Another thing of game design is to not use these stupid boxes.